start the recording on this. So last time, I believe we ended up kind of in the middle of a trial after convincing the jury that the trial should continue. So I think, I'm not sure where we are in the trial, but I stopped it at a point where I think we're going to get like a bit of a recap. So we should be good here. Yeah, we're talking about the body double. We're trying to prove that one of the people was a waxwork. But I think we're going to end up opening the mask to find out who's under there. Alright. Hopefully my voice can keep up. WWE is kind of hard on my voice too because I'm yelling a lot. I didn't really consider that, but oh well. A waxwork of the despicable professor. Used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say, it's extremely hard to believe that assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation. It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link. Oh yeah, that's right. We're also accusing the Scotland Yard coroner of being in on it. For some reason. I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir. By using evidence and testimony.
Huh. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness. The owner? Madame Two Spells. Shapt is by? I launched Book of Hours, so if I start saying nonsense again, that's why. Cool. I have no idea who Shapt is or how their sexual orientation factors into anything. I really thought that Lord Van Zieks would object to this whole line of inquiry. The door opens both ways. I see. Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Two Spells to appear as a witness with immediate effect. Shapt is one of the 9 parts of the soul. I see. It's the bi part. Makes sense? Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. Okay. The court should now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand. Madame Two Spells, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord. Oh, I think I stopped right before a to be continued. Sure did. Well, son of a bitch. That's fine. As long as it's right at the start. Alright. Let's put it here. 4th slot is for my safety save. Alright, I'm thinking this might be the last part of the trial, so we might be able to finish this this chapter today. 24th of October, 11:53 a.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Ah, you're still here. Ah, the Knight Errant himself! Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. Hi, I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. Ha 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 ha. As it turns out, Lord Van Zieks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he?
Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock.
And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate.
I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling.
Oh yes, in what particular manner?
Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zeeks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow.
Yes. In fact, I, alone, am not a member of the set. So that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. I have no idea who this is. Excuse me. Oh, it's Scythe. Hi. Dr. Scythe. Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe, née Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. I think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant. Cool? Relevant how? A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe. And I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Back from a shower and I see mommy. Bark, 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 bark. I get it. I get it. Lord Van Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me.
But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice.
I think this was a cover-up. I think Strongheart didn't have the evidence they needed on the Professor, and he ended up... They either ended up killing him extrajudiciously, or like something, and I think Strongheart knows. As well as Dr. Scythe. I think that's what they're trying to stop.
But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice.
I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. She asked me to jump, I'll ask how high. That's fair. She mentioned it too, this Pandora's box.
Whatever does it all mean?
There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it to or not. Huh? I wanted to step on me. Yo, you would love Vera from Punishing Grey Raven. She's like Dr. Scythe turned up to 11. Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. There to my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. I think I just like being dominated. That's also fair. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good, I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. Let's say Sholmes is caramel. Does he have his own brand? What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter, then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. Alright, here we go. '24th of October, 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. Wow, they left that here, huh? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsel for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted fellow who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation, as seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zieks, my lord, are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels? Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Very well. Bring in the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Trevor is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe.
And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork.
Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present it's all we have to go on. Alright. Oh! I see you're finally replacing Sholmes. State your name and occupation for the court, please.
My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I'm a waxwork artisan and the proprietress of the Madame Tuspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon.
Ah, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world.
Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face?
A number of days ago, you gotta stop showing me that. A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
A waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim.
At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman. This is not the Beautylicious Ryunosuke. This is the Dangling Dong Ryunosuke. Get me the right scroll next time. I know I commissioned a lot of artwork, but I need you to be on top of this. I can't work when I'm hard.
But of course, I know him well. He is part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say what is evidence, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all.
Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar.
Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd.
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly, it won't be that of the actual killer.
Right, because we never knew the actual identity of the professor was never released.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public after all. The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret.
That might come to it.
There was no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
Quel dommage. It would seem that you are unaware of the Tuspels principles.
Oh god, is it actually the killer's face? She was a juror on that case? Oh, maybe. What principles?
The family Tuspels have always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Two Spells waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Two Spells family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Two Spells will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear, somewhat disturbing to not see your purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
Oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It is out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tussauds special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madam, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure.
Alright, here we go. Witness testimony. The Professor Waxwork.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shook society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Two-Spell family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
There's a higher being that creates all humans. They accidentally spilled too much horny into whatever the fuck made me. No kidding.
The gravedigger, the man sanctioned this?
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew. Only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it. The face of that monster.
Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But Two Spells would not be Two Spells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madame. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time.
Damn. It was Drebber. It says so right in the paper. Was the ball mask to blame for the Great Blame? Or the Great Blaze? Henry Anderson. Mad Sheep Rampage. Darwin to receive medal. The Great Stink. Alright.
The special exhibit was based on the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitnesses who saw it.
Alright. Good enough. Yeah, Darwin. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it?
That is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe. There has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. Alright, I have no idea where to begin with this testimony. Based on rumor, okay. Impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with the spell's family principles. Who was the gravedigger? Let's start there.
Hold it!
Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed.
It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Two Spells Museum.
But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The professor's identity is a national secret. Why is it so important that this guy's identity is secret? Was he like a prince or something?
I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madam.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think. Don't you?
Or the next AA game will have references to these characters? Unlikely. I don't think they've ever referenced any of the spin-off games. Like, I don't think Investigations was ever referenced. Maybe, but I doubt it.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think. Don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse. It would be fun, I agree. I mean, this is assuming we ever get another Ace Attorney game. It's been how many years since Spirit of Justice? They're taking their sweet time.
Oui, exactement.
There for a very long time. Stone approached. I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be.
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It is because of rigor mortis.
Wriggly mortis?
It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it's very difficult to do my work.
It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder about that information the courts just heard from Madame Tuspells. It's significant? The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us. Would you mind including that in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
This is no time for jokes, Miss Usato.
Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien sûr.
Alright. I don't know if that is the, Typically in these cases, there's multiple things you can add to the testimony. I don't know if that's the one I want. Susato's great. I do like her. Let me press it again.
Hold it!
Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described, whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw about 3 hours post-death. Is that right?
Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season.
I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject.
No, that is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine.
Well, I had no idea about it. Maybe I won't admit my ignorance about forensic science.
I can ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like.
I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear, I'll do my very best.
Okay, let me check my stuff here. Oh, they shot the body when it rose from the grave. Who shot him? Huh. Mad Sheep Rampage. What about the autopsy? Confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. I think this is why it's important. I just don't know how. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered. No, that's not quite incorrect. Let me press this and see what pops up. You say that dawn was approaching. What was the time of day then? Approximately. Oh, there's gonna be more to that sentence.
Well, I could not say, but when I left the cemetery with my utensils and vax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution sorry, I'm just checking out some... it's nothing. The execution took place on 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed it did. First light would have been at around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry.
Is it me, or does Mr. Shom seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madam.
I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant? Significant. Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete that sculpture in the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant.
Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord.
She finished my work in the half hour before sunrise, and I left as soon as the corpse was interred. Is this gonna have to do with the article? It doesn't say when this happened is the problem. I'd be one of her wax sculptors, to be honest. She is a cutie. I do agree. I mean, we don't know when this is. It could have been the next day. So I don't think this really helps. It says Monday at the top. Oh, that might actually help. Yes, it does. Doesn't say the day, though. If that's a Monday, what does it say on the autopsy reports? 17th of June. Okay, this doesn't help. Doesn't tell me the weekday. Oops. One. Let me press what she just added again, just in case. I don't think I have to press the first two statements, but let me try pressing this and see if anything pops up. Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I had paid the gravedigger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area. Didn't you just have paid off the warden too, then? I had already paid the gravedigger, and as I said, you cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret is no longer a secret, huh?
Sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work.
Oui, that must be correct. That would be when the gravedigger gave me the signal to come out of hiding. So, that's all I have to go on. What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo? For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drever's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. But I feel sure that waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow. In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings, and the trial will be over. I agree, but interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all of this means more to Lord Van Zieks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting, anyway. Yes, as do I. After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well. The professor is Kazuma. It's like Kazuma's dad. Could be. Maybe that's why Lord Van Zieks hates the Japanese so much, as he knows that the professor was Japanese. That would explain a lot. Alright, let me press the two first statements just in case. Just to make sure I'm not missing anything. And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Ah, right, I know what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else.
Yes, that story will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. Okay, I think this might help me here. It was in Logate Cemetery behind the prison in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. Excuse me. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. The corpse climbed out of his own grave. And then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor, perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital. But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it? Oui, the special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. But a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, might I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often, rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people from Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. Sorry? 10 years ago, I was there in Logate Cemetery, after the criminal known as the professor was killed by hanging. I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. Okay, so she says that she took an impression of him before it was interred, which means that it was light out when he rose from the grave, and Drebber wouldn't have needed the lantern to see. So that's the contradiction. I see.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
Alright. So I think we have to show the newspaper article. Create a mold head from the... Create a mold from the head in the cemetery just before the interment. It'll be a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis. It was before the onset of rigor mortis, which happens 3 hours after death. And then she finished her work in the half hour before sunrise. Then I left as soon as the corpse was interred. So I think I'm gonna save here just in case, but I think the contradiction is on the last statement, and it's the paper. So you wouldn't have needed the lantern to see.
Objection!
No, that's not it. Shit. Okay. Is it the autopsy reports? It says it was death by hang confirmed at midnight. She said she did the thing before rigor mortis, but it was at 4:30 or so, which would have been after the onset of rigor mortis. Unless it was the wrong statement. Is it this one? Half hour before sunrise. Left as soon as the corpse was interred. Rose from his grave on the night of his execution. So... I guess we'll try the autopsy report.
Objection!
Well, it's not that either. Okay. Let me just reload the save here. If it's not that... Let's just press this, just to be safe. I'm pretty sure I know the contradiction, I just don't know how to prove it. Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then? It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I write letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Como ça? No. We're gonna call it a night. Sounds good, Waffle. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time. My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even. Yes, nothing says hardened criminal better than wax. And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the professor. Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of two spells. Okay, no, it's not that. Okay, so... If it's not the autopsy report on this... Hang on, let me read this again. Oh, whoops. This is the one I just looked at. It was this one.
Hold it!
Starts in the job about 3 hours post-death. Expiration depends a little on the season. So the window she was searching for, or the onset of rigor mortis. Because it was before. Okay, so she. Okay, hang on, timeline wise. The guy was hanged at midnight. She did the work before the onset of rigor mortis, but she said it was at 4 o'clock. And can I just double check that here?
Hold it!
Which would have been after rigor mortis already happened. Sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day. So she did it a half an hour before sunrise. So about 4 a.m. Should have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work. Which means that rigor mortis would have happened. So that can't be true. Yeah, she had issues with the job because she said she started working before rigor mortis had onset. So she worked on it before the 3-hour mark. So I think it's the autopsy report because it says it was hanged at midnight. I think that's the thing that I can get through with this. So that means I need to present it on this one. Oops.
Objection!
Yeah. All right. I had the right idea. I was just slightly wrong. Ow! Madam Two Spells. I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is it a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. What? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn. And at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam?
You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time.
But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, and by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in.
Oui, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff.
Hell! In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible! Oh boy.
Order, order! Counsel, this is beyond folly! Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison where the execution took place. Why, heck, extraordinary! Not my day!
Objection!
Oh, my learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night, without question.
He did, of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no...
Ow! Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die? Are you insane? What? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night. That night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once! The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened the night of the professor's execution.
I think it's the article. Like, he actually did get up from the grave and then he got shot. I think that's why he actually died. Like a man who had been shot in the chest with a rifle, who was shot in the chest with a rifle. Bo Burnham. That does sound like a Bo Burnham quote. Yeah, I think it's the article.
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now? Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Part of his story with long drawn-out smiles from what? I haven't seen a lot of Bo Burnham specials, unfortunately. I just know of the man. Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Or are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened. Oh. With long drawn-out similes, I read smiles. I missed the other eye.
My word indeed.
Ma what? The young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself. But obviously the man made it all up.
And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
Objection!
Wrong. On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Excuse me. Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes.
We'll substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of the staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago?
It's got his fucking name on it right there. Duh. You know how to read? Yeah, my lord, I understand you are the judge, but you are illiterate. It's got his name right there.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber?
The previous witness?
A special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order, order, order! Surely not, counsel!
Drebber was there in Lowgate. Can you not read either, Van Zeeks? It's right under the picture. Drebber was there in Lowgate Cemetery.
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant?
Of course, Madame Tussauds doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact.
What situation?
The theft of the Professor waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man.
No. But that would mean...
Madame Tussauds. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber.
Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past.
What?
Oh my!
Good gracious!
Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, yes, of course.
Oh, another... Oh, okay.
The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed.
I feel like I'm going crazy. It's right there! What do you mean? We have proof that you're full of shit. You brought me this article. You took it to me. All right. Yeah, the bottom left has his full fucking name. And it's right under the picture that you looked at to make the scene that you made. What do you mean it never was published? Oh my god. Yeah, I'm actively being gaslit by a video game. This is ridiculous. I hope that was a translation oversight. That's really the only explanation. Was just a horrible fuck up by the localization team. Can you not present that as evidence right now? I wish I could. Oh, is she about to explain it to me? That the one newspaper she got? Okay. This is still stupid, but it's slightly less stupid. That is apart from in one newspaper. So you're telling me she knew what the name was published in one newspaper, but she just never fucking read it? Like, she should know. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me, yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. N.X. Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms.
She knows his name because she knows the man. She got a cast of his face. Also fair. Yeah, I guess she's just... She has a history with him that we're just learning? Because we brought up the name? Alright, fair enough. Unbelievable. When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber and wanted to sculpt the waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
This is not a reveal. Why is this acting like this is a reveal? We knew this already. Anybody could figure it out. Okay. I feel like we're getting the same information. It's being treated like it's a fucking grand reveal. So 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Way to poke holes in your own fucking argument, Ryunosuke. Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. Once again, we've proved nothing. This whole fucking cross-examination has yielded zero information. Other than the fact that they might have faked the death of the dude 10 years ago. This does not help my case. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Ah, yes. Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. That misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Ugh. Ow! My lord! this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me.
Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. Hell yeah, Zieks. Stick to Strongheart. Fuck that guy.
But Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes.
Yes! Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together. Fuck yeah, here we go.
Order! Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect to address the Dr. Scythe of the forensic investigation team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
Alright then. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Here... Oh, you're also still here. Alright. That's fine. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zieks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime.
And where's your evidence?
At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago.
You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead.
That remains to be seen.
Is that so?
According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life.
Don't waste my time.
And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was the student who saw it.
You can see the resemblance actually, can't you? With the man who met him 2 spells, I mean.
Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a researcher student at the University of London, was he?
A bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
Cook. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law too. Style complete. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank, and I'll be Susan. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Dribber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. Will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course. As you wish. In the cemetery 10 years earlier. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model for me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believe a corpse could come back from the dead. But, so, you're saying this article is not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes.
If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Dribber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together.
So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument.
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
For grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So you were one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society.
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
God is dead. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Style complete, get fucked. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. Alright. 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting. Illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. Now I realize I never actually saw the professor at all, though. Let's press that.
Hold it!
Oh! What are you talking about? I think I explained it already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So it was renowned among us students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. Style complete, get fucked. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life. But you said you actually saw it. I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor?
We have anything at all, Mr. Naruto?
I know. I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. Do we have anything? I think we have to get something else before we can call that for certain. This is not going to help. Unless it's the waxwork head? I've unlocked a piece of my shaft. It's a wine color, sort of a dark reddish purple. Very bi, if you ask me. Yeah, if you combine all the colors on the bi flag, it probably. I actually don't know what the bi flag looks like. Dream of being a scientist. It's all because of that newspaper article. A bi flag is blue and purple. It'd probably be more purple. Blue, purple, and pink. Yeah, if you combine those, it'd probably get pretty winish. I think it's possible. Check DMs. Yeah, I think if you combine that, it'd be pretty purple. Yeah. Put money on that. I'm not very good at mixing colors, but I'm confident. Okay, let's just press... Let's press this, see if Two Spells speaks up. That young woman being Madame Two Spells, of course. Precisely. I must say I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later.
As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article and, comme ça, I found the man.
Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me. So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded.
Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas?
Dial complete. Did you? I can't say I remember. What was it, madame?
His camera.
Ah. Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir? To what end?
To record the details of the body I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is part of this special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I'm very meticulous about such details. It is a Two Spells way.
It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to the Locate Cemetery on the night in question.
Yes, interesting. Aha, okay. Good to know. So if that's the case... We know that on the inside there's dark standing on the bellers. We also know that there's no thing in the back. So what happened to the plate? Is that the contradiction? I don't really think so. check to see what it says in here. No, okay. I was wondering if it said like he took a picture. Doesn't say so. Let's press a little more, shall we? Press this. Let's press this as well. This article, you mean? Published in the Daily Circus. Yes, somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a moral student, you might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result.
Mon Dieu, I had no idea.
And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. You combined your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic. You create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never before seen technology. And you use those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Oh! Professor Albert Harebreen was just your latest victim, wasn't he? Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort. Okay, still denies it. What's Drebber up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim?
I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now.
What circumstances?
Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Scythe's past that you would desperately want to hide.
Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Scythe are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. You have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead as he originally claimed.
Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly.
You read my mind again? What the hell? Alright, let's press this just in case, and then, let's figure it out. By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene at my appearance to gauge the answer to that. The lantern and spade. But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Any major hospital. A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences. That's a little pun. Get that? Graveyard? Talking about grave robbing? Get it? My assistant got it, that's fine. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research. Professor Harebreen said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you've revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected to end the way it did. That I regret to this day. Okay. Is it the camera? Because why else would he have reason to take the plate out if he didn't take a picture? That would prove that he was there. It's flimsy, but I think it's the way they want me to go.
Objection.
Nope. Good. Okay, so if it's not the camera there... Wow, did he just threaten to deport me? Wow. If it's not that... Do we have other proof that we know we saw him? It's gotta be the camera on something, because it wouldn't be... They don't give you optional information on evidence unless it helps you get a contradiction. Because otherwise you could miss it. So it has to be that. Do I have to repress something? Hang on, let me repress this. Every once in a while, Ace Attorney will do this. Well, you have to press the same statement multiple times after you press another statement. And only then will it change. It's a very frustrating thing that they do. Let me press everything again just to be sure.
Hold it!
This is the same where I got the information in the first place. Oops. Didn't mean to click through. Let's try pressing this again. I think it was the last thing I pressed, so this is pointless, but it's fine. Yeah, his arm is weird. He's just got a clockwork gauntlet for some reason, I don't know why.
Hold it!
Very robot, yes. Oh, here we go. The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police. At the time, you know, I wish... Oh, did I not press this? Did I accidentally miss this one? I might have. That's on me. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police. At the time, you know, I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead. I started big with the London news, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from Gossip Rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. This fucker's shaking like a leaf, I don't believe it. Yeah, he seems pretty unflappable. And it spread like the plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. He's too sus? Oh yeah, he for sure did it. It's just a question of proving it. And from your description, he drew this, she drew this illustration. Precisely, that's how I learned the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate then? Well... Okay, that didn't add anything.
Hold it!
Press this again. Go through the whole thing. It's got to be to do with. It's got to be something to do with the camera. I just don't know what.
Hold it!
Why did he not continue with the statement? Because he was going to the next statement that he already made. Pretty much him just being like, I'm going to explain that in my actual testimony. Huh. A lot of moonlighting. Was based on what I witnessed that night.
Hold it!
I'm just making doubly sure. I don't think this game has done this yet. I'm just making doubly sure that it's not a situation where I have to press one statement and then another statement, very specific orders. That's why I'm pressing a whole bunch of stuff here. We just pressed this, and then we pressed the other three. Okay, so it's definitely not the case where I have to press multiple things, so there is a contradiction in here somewhere. Huh. Never actually saw the professor at all. Is there more to this camera that I haven't investigated? Is that the issue? Is there something I missed? We know about the bloodstains on the side. It's already been looked at. We already know that there's nothing in here. Oh, here we go. This is new. This is where the photographic plate goes, I think, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Dripper used that night?
Okay. This is bad design, and I'm going to tell you why. When I hovered over this, it still had the check mark. Normally, I think this might even be a bug. I'm not even sure if this is supposed to be this way. Normally, when some new evidence pops up, where it's like you get more context of the evidence, and you have to examine it again, those check marks reset. And they didn't this time. I'm pretty sure they've done that before, so I think it's actually a bug. That was why I got confused.
Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Dripper used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Tuspel's.
She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, though, isn't she? Does that not give me any extra information? Great. What about this? Sick. All right, never mind. I thought that was actually leading into something useful, and it didn't. Okay. Oops. I mean, it's gotta be this camera, because we got more information about this from a press statement. So this is the only evidence that would make sense in this situation. Unless the testimony is gonna change and then I can use the camera? But if that's the case, what's the fucking contradiction here? I am taking advice, chat. I actually saw the professor at all. I'm gonna make a safety save because I have a feeling we're gonna be here for a while. Already blew one life because I thought I had it easy, but I was incorrect. This is by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. My dream of being a scientist was all because of that newspaper article. Oh, is it this? Was it because he got expelled he couldn't have possibly gotten this? I can try it.
Objection!
No, okay, it's not that. That's what I thought. That was a Hail Mary. The likely explanation is that he got it just while he was at university before he got expelled. Okay. Written by a young woman who's holding money in wax. That's not a contradiction at all. It's got to be this, especially since every time you press it, they say, hey, if only we had some sort of material evidence to prove this. The only other... No, that's not a contradiction. I was thinking maybe as like the only other way is like the only way he could have known the professor, it was the professor and stolen it from Madame Tuspells was if he saw it, but he could have just read the paper that he made an article for. I mean, I can try it. I have a save, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah, okay, no. I didn't think so. We might just have to, just start presenting things and eventually get to the point where we find what we have to present. This might be a shotgun situation. I don't like having to do this in Ace Attorney games, but sometimes it gets to that. Every once in a while they get a contradiction that is a complete left field. It's gotta be this fucking camera, but I don't know how it helps me. If only I had the actual plate, but I cannot examine the trophy. I've tried that before. I can't even examine... Well, I can't examine the plant because I've already done that already. I'll examine it again just in case. Yeah, nothing. The reason I think it has to be the camera is because we pressed another statement and it updated the camera. Like, this is the actual camera that Mr. Drebber had with him in the cemetery 10 years ago. We didn't have that before we pressed. So I'm presuming that this now becomes the piece of evidence that contradicts a statement. And I thought it was this one, but it's not. But I don't know what other statement it would contradict. Which means if it's not that, then I could potentially, it's like it presents a contradiction on another statement. That statement gets updated, and then I present the camera. But I don't know. Let me try this. This is a Hail Mary.
Objection.
Yeah, okay, no. Yeah, I'll show the 5 statements again. So, the reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say, which is grave robbing, as we learned. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. Thinking back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor at all, though. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted me a model of me from wax. And I gave up my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. I am stumped here. I have no idea. You re-examine everything on the camera? We already did that. There was nothing new, unfortunately. This just opens the slide. And we examine the blood again. Or what looks a lot like blood. And then back here is just this. And I couldn't find anything else on here to investigate. Yeah, nothing. I did repress everything, yes. I'll do it again just to be super duper sure. But I'm fairly certain there's a contradiction here somewhere. I just don't know where.
Hold it!
Can we look at the article again? I cannot examine the article, no. It is a picture and not a 3D model. I was hoping that someone else would pipe up as well.
Hold it!
And this is the one where they're like, if only we had material evidence to prove it. But, so I think that's the statement we have to contradict, because usually when they give you a hint that heavy,
Hold it!
they're usually telling you, what it wants. You need history for me? History is just the history of everything that the text boxes say. Scrolling past literally all of them. Well, yeah, I'm expecting that something would change.
Hold it!
I can hit history. Was there any particular statement you want to read the pressing statement of? You, just so you know, you can't scroll past this quickly if there's new information being presented to you. You can only do it after you've seen everything. If there's new information that pops up, like in the middle, it'll actually stop this and put you back to normal. I think it was in 2.
Hold it!
Strange happening in Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Entirely ran to fetch the police at the time, you know, shaking like a leaf. They didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. Went to the papers instead. Started big with London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, as reported from the Gossip Rags, the gutter press that came to get my story. Felt like the plague through the capital as gossip hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. Story was every single paper, with the exception of some broadsheets. Only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? A particular journalist found me in my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. In the description, he drew this illustration. Precisely, it's how I learned that the man was the professor, because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. The disorders aren't, yeah, He portrayed in the illustration is accurate then? Well, and then he goes on to statement 3. Let me see the illustration again. Yeah. Looks like this. Oh! The signature! Odie Asman drew the illustration. That's the same signature that's on the contract. I don't know if that helps me right now, but that is useful to know. I'm sure that's going to come up later. I found a thing. I don't think it was the right thing, but it was a thing. Okay. And yeah, I have Drever's contract right here to prove it. Exact same. Okay, that's useful. Does that help me? I don't think so. Can I present the article? I can try.
Objection.
Oh, it was the article. All right, I'm excited to find out why this is a contradiction. Sorry, Mr. Drever, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Oh, your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago. Oh dear, we seem to be at odds, but I was there and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's rulings that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously, the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
Aha! So, Mr. Drever, as you've just heard, a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. Oh, that's what it is. Ah, okay, that does make sense. That does actually make sense. There's no way he could have known that the guy had a mask on. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration. Illustration looks shaded at best. It's pretty obvious that he has the mask, if you look closer at it. It's even got like the iron bolts in the front, and like the weird rounded where the part where the ear goes over. Especially looking at the actual mask. So I think it's valid.
Order, order! Well, Mr. Drever.
It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I had seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. Why did he wiggle his hands? He does the wave every time. I don't know why. You're still saying you didn't see it?
You're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness. Then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you.
Of course. Only too happy to oblige. I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. Alright. I was right. It was something you had to present on a contradiction, he would update his testimony, and then the camera would come into play. Alright. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work.
Hold it!
Alright. A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see.
You're claiming it was just another student and on equally insalubrious business as yourself.
Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity. I glitched out, wouldn't you say?
Objection!
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. A bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more.
We might assume that's the
That the sexton? What the fuck is a sexton?
We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them.
If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord.
Ah, yes, well...
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter. Here we go. Now we're talking.
Excuse me!
Signs of life. Person who looks after a church and churchyard, sometimes acting as a bell ringer and formerly as a gravedigger. Oh. Now we know. Madame Tuspels. Don't take it out of Mr. Sholmes.
Oh la la, pardon.
This was faster by a split second. Fastest wiki in the West.
I was lost in my thoughts.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Dribber's last remark was significant to you in some way?
I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Dribber could claim this now.
If you don't mind me saying, Madame, what are you talking about?
Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot.
Stop. Ow, ow. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Oh, have a care, Trevor. That's no way to speak to a lady. Please, Madame Tuspels, carry on.
Of course. According to what Monsieur Dribber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him and the bullet hit the condemned man.
I said nothing of the sort.
No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that spattered over you when he was shot.
Here's where the camera comes in. Ow, ow, enough. Shut up, woman. You're making all this up.
That will do. Mr. Trevor.
Yes.
You refute the account just given by Madame Tuspels.
I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on, do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness.
Very well. Now we got him. Here's where the camera comes in. There was no gunshot from behind me at all, nor any spattering blood. Got him.
Objection!
Here we go. All right. We're back in it. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera?
But that is the camera from that fateful night. Did you fucking steal it? What the fuck?
Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forward on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good lord, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood.
Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe?
I'd know that shade of red anywhere. Yeah, he's a vampire.
It would be difficult to determine whether it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough.
Oh! I propose that Madame Tuspel's testimony was correct. And that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, and that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
Oh, but why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Did he just turn into a windmill? He sort of did. For whose then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, she's shielding someone.
Yes, my lord, and clearly... it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to light to be exposed.
Well, Counselor, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night?
It's
Take that!
the obvious answer is Dr. Scythe.
Scythe. Whatever do you mean?
Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
Oh, this is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you are suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Did you not hear me object the first time? Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, Counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner.
Shut up, Van Dums.
It would take the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up.
Let me just fucking kick that lid on Pandora's box open, if you don't mind. Oh! And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime. I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Ah! It's been a while since we've seen that one. But Lord Van Zieks. Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now.
Goodness me.
It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. Oh, that's his motive. The signature of the guy who made the illustration was Odie Asman, and because he ruined his life, that was why Enoch Drebber wanted him dead. Oh, good catch, good catch. It's the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, Who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever? Well, I have no idea at the moment.
We have too little information to work that out at present, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Also, not relevant. Objection, relevancy. That has nothing to do with the point I just made. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considered what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Quite. Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it.
Rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim. No.
There is the contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it.
Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place.
Fuck this guy. He is one of the most smarmy villains we've had in a long time. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then? We figured it out. Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? I just noticed. Look at fucking assistant guy in the background. Is to fucking dodge the glass being thrown near his head. I love the addition of the assistant. It makes this so much funnier. How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
Alright. Who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? Yeah, he's got more antics. It's great. There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I'm going to have to present two pieces of evidence to show what it is. Owie. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here. Okay, so I think I could start with the paper.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord. You need two? Yeah, I think it's going to be one after another. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asman dead. What other evidence?
Counsel, you present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed.
It's the contract.
Take that!
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asman. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. Stop interrupting, we'll show you the damned evidence. I know. No, I'm afraid not. What? There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman.
It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed.
So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract? right here.
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
Our signature.
Oh, the signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person.
What?
As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. Van Zieks has spent this trial pissed off because he knows you're right, but also he knows you need proof. I think that's absolutely the case, yeah. He wants the truth as much as me. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see now. Good lord, yes, they're identical.
Oh, in short, the journalist who drew the illustration and who wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman. Oh wow, fully knocked him down that time.
Objection!
Oh, but explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Robbing you, sir.
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell it to be the lucrative. Yeah, baby, well, yeah, I think I never interrupted you. Leave the university. Did I give up the article? That was it. At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life. It's kind of like banjo noises. I know what you're talking about. I see it.
So, Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of this criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman. Enough. Did we finally get him? Stop this endless drivel about my life. What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Oh, is this where the trophy finally comes into play? What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypothesis anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other after all.
Good gracious.
Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Wrong. Ow, ow. Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. I think it's a saying, but I don't know what it means. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. Ow, ow. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lack talent? The trophy that you won because you had talent.
Take that!
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
What exactly is this trophy, Council?
It's a trophy from the Royal Society that you get if you're excellent in science. My lord. It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Good gracious.
You've gotten a lot of good graciousness out of the judge this case. We're up to like, I feel like 5 or 6. Yeah, my lord, can you actually not read? Like, I won't think less of you, but I do need to know. You can get the bailiff to read it. Can he read? Hopefully he can read. Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. Also, it's not even that he can't read the trophy. Van Zieks literally said it out loud. He doesn't even have that excuse. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. Breakdown time? Nope, not yet. 2-second memory like a goldfish. The truth is... Finally, he's going to fold. I don't think so. Ow, ow. What? Was that Scythe who just said hold it? It was. Because if he gets proven wrong, she also goes down. Ah. Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. What? I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No.
Good lord!
Oh, Dr. Scythe, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage. I smell bullshit. I feel like this isn't over yet. I feel like she's about to throw a wrench in, like, right at the end to fuck me up. My heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Scythe, you will go along with my plan, or someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night, 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. I think that's the end. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it from coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. Is she actually just admitting defeat here? Is it over? So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. Yeah, I have no idea how they would come back from this. You admit your part in it too, then? Ow, ow, I admit nothing at all. What? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No! Kinda got a point. We don't actually have anything hardcore linking him to the scene. This is a lot of circumstantial evidence. Order! 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 Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zieks. Yes? I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. You just smile? That's a first.
I heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain.
Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Scythe has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean?
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord. Are you telling me for the first time in Ace Attorney history, we're actually just proving the innocence of the defendant and that's it? We're not actually finding the real perpetrator? This is literally an Ace Attorney first. This has never happened before. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrain's innocence.
This is not the last trial of the game. No, this is the third one. There's two more.
Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Scythe suddenly admit to it like that? I'm streaming? Yeah. I stream every Monday.
Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo?
Oh, is this a situation where I have to object to my own client being declared innocent in order to prolong the trial? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is... oh god. I mean, the logical common sense part of my brain is telling me immediate adjudication. But I know the game wants me to say further testimony. I know for a fact that's what they want me to do. I'm gonna save just in case, but I already know. This might be a fake choice, but let's see. Ow! I objected myself. The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony. Fucking soap opera shit. Oh my god.
You do realize I'm about to advocate in favor of your client, I presume?
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Correct. I'm batshit crazy.
Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking?
Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and a way to bring it all out into the open.
Right.
Yes, in hindsight.
Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. In the course of the trial, I really was saying that we are on the bomb again. I'm on the hill. And on your side, I pursue like an all alone. On the bit of wind, the understands. Do not value. We become the breath.
I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Oh! Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client, and to secure an acquittal. And literally for no other reason, but I'm still objecting. Obviously. You do a great Sholmes impression, Naruhodo. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty in the court. To the court, to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Scythe. Testimony from me? About what? Oh! About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enigdrebber. Ha! In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. Ah. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point practicing this business further with another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
Oh, you champion. Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped.
That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Dranzix? The prosecution
Also calls for Downwardia. Downwardia? That's what you call it, yeah. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Never mind. Go ahead and ban him, please. Don't be stupid.
If there is more to this case than has yet to come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end.
Thank you, Toaster. Yo, what? Lord Van Zieks?
This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Scythe, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Aye. Very well. All right. And we are going to end this episode here because it is 12:30. We're going to start the next episode of this on Friday with the new testimony. I would love to continue to figure out what's going on, but I don't want to go too much later. So we will be calling it there for tonight. So, everybody in the chat and everybody was lurking, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I think Zeke's really wants to know the whole truth. I think it is very much the same character arc as like, oh, who is it? I think it's Edgeworth in the first, I almost called it the first Great Ace Attorney. In the first Ace Attorney game, where he was very much like, he got to the point where he was willing to let the trial go on in order to get the full truth of what happened. I think that was a Edgeworth in Ace Attorney 1. So I think, yeah, that he's just having this moment of just like, it's not up to me. It's not about just getting the results I want, it's about getting the truth. Yeah, it happened in the DLC case. That was a big part of the final testimony. Was he was just like, hey, my duty is to figure out what went on. Which is not the truth, but, you know. Okay, well. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed. We're going to be dropping you off somewhere. I think we'll probably raid Matt. Unless I see anybody else I really want to raid. We haven't raided Matt in a while. We only get to do it once a week. Yeah. We'll raid Matt. Go say hi. Let's play some more Star Rail. Alright. We'll be back here tomorrow with some Portal 2. because I want to play that game again. Been like 8 years since I last played it. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Missed an I. There we go. All right, everybody go say hi to Matt. We love him. You know what's up. You know Matt. Everybody loves Matt. And yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow to play some Portal 2. We'll be continuing this on Friday with some of this and maybe some more WWE. I don't know. We'll see how many more streams of WWE I do. I do enjoy it, but you know, there's only so much you can do with it of just watching people beat the hell out of each other before it gets kind of bland. So we'll see what we do on Friday for the next game. If anything, we'll probably continue Portal 2 a little bit more. We'll see. Anyways, everybody, hope you enjoyed. And everybody have a great night. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Bye-bye.